Hello, and welcome to Magic is Real, a podcast focused on the fascinating world of near-death experiences, spirit communication, and all things metaphysical and spiritual. The mission of this project is to share messages of hope and inspiration with others, and to spread the word that death is only an illusion. Thank you for being here with an open heart and mind. I wish you peace, light, and love always. Hello, Magic is Real listeners. Thank you so much for being here today. I have with me today the lovely Anne Bayford. The reason is that she is a near-death experiencer, and I'm going to read from her bio because there's so much more to it. And then I'm going to have you, Anne, tell us from your perspective what it is that you do and kind of what your path has been. So on Anne's website, this explains that Anne achieved her qualifications in counseling, neuro-linguistic programming, cognitive hypnotherapy, and emotional freedom technique before exploring spiritual pathways. She's since completed her Reiki Masters, trained as a psychic medium, and studied mindfulness, and now runs private consultations online and in person, and is also a part-time consultant at the College of Psychic Studies in London. So that's a little blurb and a blog, but welcome, Anne. I want to welcome you here. I'm having trouble speaking today. I've had a week of migraines, so this is not my most smooth ever. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you so much. You're doing perfectly well.
Oh, thank you. Whew, that was so hard. So I would love to hear about the services you provide. We're then going to go back to the beginning of your life. I want to know about your spiritual attitudes and experiences back then, and then what happened to you. But I'd love for you to start by just sharing where you are today. What kinds of things are you getting into? What services you provide, etc.
Right, lovely. Gosh, I was going to say, because that bio is just a little cherry on the top. I love
It
that.
is, yeah.
Okay, what do I do now? It's funny because it's a real transitional stage at the moment. There's a lot going on. So I am a psychic medium. I'm from also listening to telepathic messages from animals that want to pass on information to their owners. So I do the animal communication work around the whole world. I might work with some zoo vets, or I might work with vets around the world. I've always got my map by my side where I tune in and use remote viewing, and I tune into the animal, what's going on. So I've had some vets where they've been working with animals and they've done all the investigation. They still can't find out what's going on. And I had that recently with a lovely dog in America, I think Colorado, where the owner contacted me, and literally the animals was in a real bad way, and it was literally had been poisoned. So that was last couple of days ago. And then sometimes I get animals who've passed over on the other side that want to communicate with their owners. And I've been in the middle of an owner with their new dog and the old dog from the other side saying he didn't like the new dog. So that's very strange. I work hard. I've been working on some murder cases and kidnaps. I do that with the police as well. I can remote view for some clients where to find members of family that disappeared, and also find other resources for companies if they're looking for them around the world using remote viewing. And as a psychic medium, obviously passing through information to whoever wants to see me, if someone on the other side has passed over and they need to hear a message. Some people just want to know that their loved one is okay on the other side, so I do a lot of that. And also a lot of soul work, because I've listened every time to when I've been instructed by spirit to sort of say to me, hey, you need to go learn, counselling, or you need to go do this, you need to go do that. And I was like, well, what do I do with this? I've got all this information as a counsellor and a therapist, and then I've got this other information. What do I do with it? And so now, as things have panned out, I've been doing this for 5 years full time now. I gave up my original job to do this. It was a calling. It was nothing that I wanted to do originally, but it was like they were asking me to do this job, so I did. And so now I combine it. I do a lot of soul work. So I will sit and tune into the individual that sits in front of me, and if they I sometimes can pick up that there may be either a past life, they might be repeating a pattern, they might have relationship issues where I look at if that partner is from that soul pod of theirs and they might need something resolving. Soul contracts I look at. I work with Akashic records. And past lives. I trained with Dr. Brian Wise out in America, Miga Institute, and I'm one of the UK past life practitioners here that I do that as well. So I do a combination of things, and then I learned about becoming a medical intuitive, so I do that as well. So literally when someone presents in front of me, we'll have a look at where they are in their life, what journey they're on, and it might be then that, as you know, learning about psychology and everything I do, we might need just to release a few things for them, like some blockages. So I work from either a counselor point of view or looking at how we can use hypnotherapy to release those human blockages in this human life they have, to actually then to help them to work through their soul contracts or their soul life or their soul journey so they can move on to the next step. So there's a combination of things I do.
That's wonderful. I feel like you do everything that you can possibly do in the intuitive realm, because some people are psychics, some are Reiki masters, some are, but it feels like you have such a strength in all your abilities that you can translate them to others, which is a dream, I think. I think that's really wonderful. So how did all of this is a very simple question, how did all of this begin for you?
A simple question. Well,
Yeah, simple.
well, it's funny because going back as a child, I used to see spirit, and I used to say to my family members, like, no, you're not, you know, someone will lock you up if you say that you're seeing and hearing things, you'll get locked away and they'll think there's something crazy wrong with you. But I used to keep seeing spirit. I could tell when a loved one was going to pass over. I could hear animals very clearly. I thought this was normal. I thought everyone could hear animals, so I didn't think anything of it. And so it just, you know, when I got to becoming a teenager, you know, my mum was very like, don't keep telling people, you know, they might think there's something wrong with you. So I tried to switch it off, which I did to some degree. And then how did it happen? Well, it's interesting. I did all the psychology. I became a counsellor 20-something years ago, 30 years ago now. And I'd had a few people that came to me that had you know, post-traumatic stress or near-death experiences. And my mind logically, because I wasn't working with my intuitive side then, I was thinking as a therapist, oh, this is to do with the chemicals in the brain, this is what's going on. Not that I didn't believe them, but I found it hard to understand. And then the day of the accident happened, I think it's 2020 now, some time ago, maybe no, it wasn't, it was 2000, that was it, 2000. And March the 11th or 12th, March the 11th, I think. And the day the accident happened, it sort of, I had no waking. I was hit by the van. I died for 7 minutes. And it was an extraordinary experience. I saw so much. And then it was hard to go back to the reality as what I knew or thought it was going to be. And so I needed to make sense of my journey. I was going to church at the time before the accident happened. And I remember speaking to my vicar at the church, and I was trying to explain, what did I see? You know, what was happening? And I wasn't getting all the answers. So I then discovered the College of Psychic Studies in South Kensington in the UK in London, did a couple of courses. I didn't have any thoughts about doing this professionally later on at all. It was the last thing I thought. But I kept on being told by some of the, you know, world famous professional mediums, one day you're going to be a consultant here at the college, you're going to be a psychic medium. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And so as the years went on, I was working in a hospital as a consultant, and there was, you know, some people would have passed over during an operation. I started talking to some of the consultants and saying what I'd felt. I did my Reiki course, became a master a long time ago now. And that really helped to open me up. And I started doing a lot of meditation. And then it was just like, I couldn't turn back the clock. There was, you know, I had that near-death body experience then. And then about 9 years ago, really 10 years ago, my lung collapsed as well. And I had another experience with an angel, which I didn't believe in angels. And then 5 years ago, I had another operation and another near-death experience. So I was like, this is 3 times now. And I'm like, okay, I get the message. And that's sort of my journey, how I ended up.
Thank you for that. I have said this 1,000 times, but I'm saying it to you. I think so many people that have near-death experiences report that they already were seeing spirit.
Yeah.
And so it really definitely, to me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, feels as though it was your calling to expand that ability, that innate ability that you already have by saying, okay, now we're going to show her even more, because
Yeah.
that is so common.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to me. It doesn't mean everyone who's ever had an NDE was born knowing they had these abilities, but most of them afterwards definitely go down that path. Not all, but a lot of them do.
I mean, I totally agree with you. I feel as if it was like a doorway that was being ready, prepared, and to open up for me. And I remember I was going through a difficult patch just before the accident happened, and I was so dissatisfied with what was going on in my life. And it was like I was reaching out, but it was like I was still getting on with my everyday life and trying, as sometimes we do, like, oh no, it'll be fine, everything will sort itself out, and I've got to go to work, I've got to do this 9 to 5 job, I've got to pay the bills, I'm in this situation, I have children, everything else. And it was like, no way. And then by having this accident happen, it was like, oh, it reawakened what was already there. But I tried to put it to one side, because trying to fit in with the 3D society and trying to feel as if I was normal, wherever that is. And so I did. And for so long as a teenager, being told that, if you say you see spirit or hear spirit, you're a crazy person. And so it sort of stayed with me in my head. And as a teenager, you want to fit in. So yeah, it just reawoken it. And each time an episode has happened, I mean, I didn't believe in angels. Of
Yeah.
course I did. Until I
I,
had one that stands behind me and says, hello, I'm here.
that's so cool. I have so many questions. I say this every time. I feel like I just am a broken record of questions. But first of all, I'm the same way. I never believed in angels, and I haven't had personal experience with witnessing an angel, but I fully believe in them now. I just always thought of it as like this hokey thing that lonely old cat ladies were into, and they had the little figurines, and it was like this corny thing. I never resonated with angels. I just thought it was wishful thinking or whatever. And it wasn't until I was listening to my teacher, Monica the medium, has a podcast, and she interviewed an angel communicator named B, who I'm now friends with and have gotten readings from. And it changed the way she put it. I was like, you know what? That actually really makes sense and does not conflict with my paradigm. What I'm just going to go all over the place with angels. What do you understand about them? What were you shown about them? And how do you know when an angel is with you?
Oh, that's interesting you should say that, because I remember the day when I was diagnosed with a lung condition about 9 years ago, and that led me down the rabbit hole of looking at past lives, because in this reality, the consultants didn't understand why I have so much scarring on my lungs and said, you must have been a smoker. And I said, not. So I went down the past life avenue. And when my lungs actually collapsed on it, well, one of the lungs collapsed that day, I remember sitting there in my bedroom and saying, and I didn't even believe in God then either. And I was like, oh, divine or universe or what source or whatever you want to call it. And I was like, God, I just need some help. Someone, somewhere, help me. And I remember it so clearly. And then all I heard was a massive thump. It was almost as if the sound felt as if the roof had collapsed upon me. The thump was amazing. And I was like, what is going on? And I was struggling to breathe at that time as well. And I was still sitting there going, what's going on? I just need some help. And I then felt like a hand on my shoulder. And I couldn't explain. The whole room felt very strange. And I thought, I'm the only one here, but why am I feeling a hand on my shoulder? And all I know, the presence felt as if it was like a heavy boulder, very strong. It was as if I was sitting next to this massive stone boulder, because the strength that I felt, and it was about 30 foot tall. And I just felt that I didn't need to turn around, that I could feel the strength by my side. And I was told, I have you, I've got your back. And I was like, what? And I remember I felt like a shield and a sword going down, and this being, or whatever I thought, I didn't know at the time it was an angel, was kneeling down before me saying, I have your back, I have you, I'm here to support you, I'm here to give you strength, we're going to get you through this. And I remember my daughter walking in the room, she didn't see anything, but she called the ambulance, and I was taken off to hospital, my lungs sorted out, and then I was given medication and whatever. And I was trying to think, what was this? And all I was being told is Archangel Michael had stepped forward to assist me. And I was like, I don't believe in angels. What the hell is going on? And so from that day forth, a lot of the work that I do, sometimes I have women who step forward who've lost babies. I will have another type of angel. There's so many different types of angels that will, the cheruby angels and the big chunky angels that I saw. The archangels will step forward to assist me on my work. I do a lot of work with Archangel Metrodon now. I do a lot of retreats and workshops where Archangel Metrodon comes in, where I link the human souls to help humanity moving forward. I do a lot of trance work now with Galactic Council as well, and Archangel Metrodon is always helping to link me to the other side so that I can bring forward more information to help humanity. So my work is really changing drastically. So they're not, for me, I don't find they're light fluffy like we imagine. They're very direct. They've not had a human existence, so they're very direct when they're speaking, especially Archangel Metrodon just really says it as it is. And I almost have to filter through some of the language to help my human beings to understand and not feel as if it's so fierce and so strict. So yeah, so I'm a believer, that's for sure.
That is so cool. When you hear the voice of an angel, or when you heard the first time, for example, when you heard, I've got your back, did you hear it as a voice in your own head, or did you hear it externally? And do you continue to?
So I hear it as I do when, as working as a psychic medium, it's not internally in my head, it's from my ear on my right-hand side, and it comes forward and it comes through. And then actually, when I did an angel practitioner course as well through the college, and when I was doing that course, I realized the day of my accident, when I got knocked down by the van, I heard a voice, and I heard my nan's voice, but also the presence I felt. I was aware from having this angel experience that my angels were right by my side too, because I should have been, my neck should have been severed, and there should have been no return. But the position I had landed at, I was being directed by them. And when during that experience of being knocked down and dying, coming out of my body, looking down at my body, also was aware that I later found out that I was in the akashic records, which I didn't know what that even meant at the time. And I was being shown information, scrolls, and timelines. My timeline, I was given information, and that's what I do with clients now. When I sit with some of my clients, I may go into sort of trance mode in a way where I go to the akashic records for them to look at their information, because I find it quite easy to go in to see their timelines and to see where they might be repeating patterns and what we can unfold and help them. But that's very much where I have like a council of different beings that will come through, angels, guides, you name it, a lot of that will come through. So yeah.
Thank you. I do want to talk about what happened. I know you've had three, and I think, as I saw, and Jeff Mara interviewed you as well and said, let's kind of just, that might be the most significant, so we can talk about that one in more detail, because I'm sure it would take hours to explain the whole thing. And you've probably explained them to death, pardon the pun. So, but one of the things I would love to know is, how do you, is
Yeah.
it simply intention? How do you access the akashic? Is it akashic? Why am I saying akashic? Akashic?
Well, do you know, I think it depends on whereabouts you are in the world, the
Okay.
accent, and how, wording and stuff. It's relevant. We all know it's the same
It
thing,
is.
but that's it. So
I think I say akashic records. So how do you know that you're there, or how do you get there?
right. It's interesting because I didn't know what that even meant years ago. And then through meditation and really connecting with Archangel Metrodon, I was shown some information, and all I heard was the Akashic records, and you have access to it, but I need to access it. I access it with going through Archangel Metrodon. the soul keeper. I was told it's the soul keeper. So when I bring in my guides and my team and I, channel and open up and everything, I always, if I'm working with a client, and also sometimes my guides that come in, I have an understanding straight away, this client wants to look in the akashic records, so that's why I've got the soul keeper coming in. So I have the soul keeper coming in, and then I ask for access. When I go into the akashic records, I tune into that feeling I felt. I didn't realize it was actually what I was being shown at the accent, but after working in the akashic records, it's the same thing. I was being told and shown the same thing. So I'll ask for permission to go into the akashic records. My soul keeper will step forward, and I work through my soul keeper. I have to be what I was told, and I am aware that respectfully we go in, but we must be careful in what so much information we reveal. I'm really mindful of how much information is told, because sometimes information changes your destiny, which you're meant to go on a certain pathway. And, you're meant to meet that individual. I had someone saying about her relationship and, is it going to last? Well, I knew if I'd said, no, it's not going to last, she was going to dump this person.
Right.
I knew she had to go to the next stage of this relationship. So I have to be very careful in what I reveal. And, normally the soul keeper I work with normally says, stop. And then I don't get access. And I'm like, okay, but I know there's something more. So it's interesting. My guides, my team are very good on that. I remember I worked with a kidnap a couple of years ago. And there was something a bit strange about this. And I remember I was being interviewed by the police and the parents and everything else. And then the grandma had come through in spirit, and she said, stop, don't give any more information away, because there's something a little bit dodgy about the individual that was in the room, that they had a connection to the kidnap. And I remember, okay, fine, I won't say any more. And I had to work something out. So my guides are clued up. They know what's going on. So I am the voice, like the telephone. So yeah, I need to listen and see what they need me to give the instructions about. Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that very clearly. So going back, can you share how the first NDE happened and what was going on in your life at the time?
Yeah, okay. I remember it as if it's like yesterday. I was in a job that I wasn't really happy about being, and like all of us, I had to pay the bills, and I remember I had to do this job. My children were 7 and 5 years old at the time, and in a relationship that I wasn't too happy about being in either. And it was very hard to think as a mother to leave that relationship, to have these children, what's going to happen. And I was being very triggered by the fact that, I'd had something very similar that happened to me in my childhood. So I wanted to be the best mother I could, offer them the best life I could. Like most mums, you want to do the best for your children. And I remember feeling a bit overwhelmed with the job. I was a project coordinator for a charity. It was all about befriending scheme for the elderly. And it was my job to organize everything, to apply for funds. It was hard work. I was, one of 2 full-time members. And yes, I wasn't very happy. And I remember at the time that I wasn't sure in what I really believed in. I had a lot of loved ones that passed over, and I wasn't too sure, where do they go? There was a lot going on. And I remember the day that I left the office, I think it was about 2:20, something like that. And I was thinking, I have to get the train to go and pick up my children. I had to rush, I was against the clock. And I knew I had to post a letter for a client so that they would get some help from the social services. I had the letter in my hand. And I remember I got to the traffic lights. I think somebody else pressed that button, and I remember there's about 4 other people, and I remember thinking, shall I cross the road here? Should I go get the train? Should I go take the letter and post it in the post box where I live? And because they had pressed the button, I was like, well, okay, that makes sense. I'll cross the traffic lights here. And out of habit, I was looking both ways in London because it's quite busy. There was a middle island, which, we stood on there. And I remember there was a few people around me, and it happened split seconds. And I was still thinking, shall I post the letter in the post box, which was walking straight ahead of me? Or shall I change direction with my right foot? So I go get my newspaper first, and then I go back on myself. But logically, I was thinking, doesn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense to do that because I'll go back on myself. And then I heard a voice saying that, no, 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 go and buy the newspaper. And I was like, what? And I was arguing with myself. I thought it was just internally in my head. And this was split seconds. It was a green light for pedestrians to walk, but it was red light for traffic to stand still. And I remember hearing this information, no, go get your newspaper. And I was like, doesn't make sense. Okay, I'll get my newspaper. And that made a difference. My whole body changed direction. So I walked across the road at a different angle. And as I did that, my body weight was all on my right foot. And that made the biggest difference ever. What had happened was there was a van that was coming 40 miles per hour, which it should have just been doing about 20 miles per hour. And I don't know what happened to the other people. Nobody else got knocked down. They must have gone in front of me. And I don't remember, well, I don't physically feel, or I didn't physically feel the van hitting me at 40 miles per hour. And so the impact hit me, and I traveled about 10 feet across the ground. I whacked my body onto the road surface, but I didn't feel any pain. So all I know is something had happened, and all I was hearing, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay. And I felt very warm. Now, this is in March and winterish time. It was a cold day, but physically a cold day. I had my heavy coat on, but I felt very warm. And I remember that I felt that there was this light around me, like bathed in not golden sunlight, but it was very white. And it felt as if I was being wrapped in a duvet, in a cover that was hugging me. And I could hear my nan's voice, and she'd looked after me when there was difficult times during my childhood. And she had passed when I was 15 years old. So all this was going on, and I just felt very peaceful and very calm. But physically what had happened is the van had drove through me. I'd gone across the ground 10 feet, hit the ground, and I had hit my pelvis, but my stomach muscle had, like my belly fat had gone over the side of my hip, and my hip had acted like a knife and it sliced through everything. So there was this part of my body that had been sliced. There was intense bruising in there. My ribs on both sides had been fractured and broken. My foot had been ripped out of my ankle. So the ankle had totally been damaged. There were 7 breaks in there. And the tendons and ligaments were all damaged. Later on, I had to have loads of operations. My knee, the cartilage had been whacked onto the ground, so it broken the cartilage, and fractured hip. Now, at the same time, what's happened bodily wise, my organs had been moving about, so I had internal bleeding. So my gallbladder was damaged, my spleen was damaged, my kidneys were bleeding internally, and then my heart stopped. But I didn't know this was going on. So all I remember that I was witnessing was that, and I didn't know it was actually me, that I'd left my body. I didn't know it was me that I'd left my body, but all I know is I was sitting in a big lorry, in the cab of the lorry. I was sitting next to the driver, and I was hearing him saying, oh, this silly woman's got knocked down and they're going to airlift her and the road's been shut off and I'm running late and she ran out in front of a car. And so that's what he was saying, but I could feel his frustration and anger, but I still didn't know that was my body. And then I remember I was looking down on the street view, and I saw the paramedic on the motorbike had arrived, and he'd parked his vehicle in one area and he was running up the road to me, which I didn't know was me at the time. And then I was looking down and I could see everybody in the street. I could see their faces. I could feel the atmosphere, the energy. And I was like, I could feel their stress, their tension, their worry that this woman had got knocked down. And again, I didn't know it was myself. And then there was a family member that was there, and I could see he looked very grey in the face. He looked very upset. And I was thinking, why does he look so sad? And somehow I knew I was connected to him. I could hear a lady coming out of the shop in the hairdressers with a roll-up towel, and she was going to run towards me to put it onto my neck. People were saying, stop, don't do that. So I was witnessing all that, but I still didn't understand it was me. And then my partner came running down the road because he worked nearby, and he was in the middle of the road, and I didn't know it was me, but I was wondering why he was running down the road. And then he placed his hand on my head, And then I could feel his worry, and I could hear him saying, what am I going to do with Rebecca and Nathan? It's my children, our children. How am I going to cope without her being here, Anne? And I was like, oh, he must be upset. What's going on? And I still didn't understand. And at the same time, like the parallel universes, different dimensions, it was an overlap of me being in a very white environment. And I remember it felt as if I was in a very large library. And all I could see by the side of me, that a being was talking to me, some shape or form of a being, had no feet, because I remember thinking they're just gliding. And they were like pulling out almost like files and books from shelving, but without touching it, they were going like this. And then the book was being pulled out, and then scrolls, and I was being shown some information and told some information. And then everything I was asking, a sentence, before I could finish my sentence, they were answering the question. So I was like, I was going to say, what's going to happen with Rebecca and Nathan? But before I got to the end of the sentence, they already said, everything's going to be okay. And I didn't ask if I was going to die. It wasn't nothing like that, because I didn't understand where I was. But I was just focusing on them. And then I was just being told it wasn't time for you to go yet. It's not time for you to go yet. But it was the anchor of my children that I feel really pulled me back into my body. So back on planet Earth, the paramedic was there, then the ambulance arrived, and then they were cutting my clothes, going up to the front, and then they paddled me. So they electrocuted my heart to sort of bring it back. And all I remember is then I felt pain. It felt as if I was going in a water theme park down on those slides where you spiral down. And I could feel I was going round and round and round and round, and shot back into my body. And the pain, I was like, oh, and I was screaming in pain because my foot had been ripped out. They were giving me gas and air. And then all the way to the hospital, I remember leaving my body, looking at the top of the ambulance. I could see the numbers. I got into crash at the hospital. There were 3 sets of professionals working on my body, and they cut everything off. And I remember when I look back, I was thinking, I didn't feel embarrassed that I was naked. I was just looking down at my body, and it's almost as if I was trying to say to him, no, if you look there, that's what's wrong. And then I was in intensive care, and I was in and out of consciousness. A nurse said, before I left, she said she was holding my hand a lot of the time. And then there was times when she could see my hand was squeezing something, but didn't know who was squeezing. Now, for me, it was my nan that was always sitting with me. My nan who passed over in spirit, she was there holding my hand all the way through it and saying that I'm coming back. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so interesting. I mean, obviously, that's why we have whole podcasts and why people are so fascinated with them. Especially, what struck me is that concept, which is that there is no time on the other side, and that everything is happening at the same time.
Yes.
Or is it even the other side? It's just another dimension. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about that from your perspective and what you've learned.
Oh my God, I tell you, when I came back, everything seemed so clear. It just seemed, I mean, now I run sort of manifestation classes and stuff, because you can have whatever you want. And it's very much about, to step out of the mindset of what we think that we've been told that we can only have in life. That's the very 3D perspective of those around you that are telling you that you can only have a certain, type of life. Because I know that every piece of work that you do on that personal growth, your journey, is affecting you, sort of your ancestral timeline, your karmic timeline, and also moving forward. So that's why I understand, that's why they wanted me to learn about counselling and therapy, so that I can help people to move those blockages from the psychological perspective, so that it actually goes back and heals the timeline, your family tree. And I've worked with quite a few clients, maybe their family members have gone through a war, or I've heard about the Holocaust, where we work on clients that sit in front of me, and we know the healing goes all the way back. It's interesting when we say backwards and forwards. I mean, there's loads of YouTube clips that I've done about when I do my trance stuff. There is no concept of time on the other side. It just is layers and layers and layers and layers. It's a bit like back in the day, I don't know, I mean, maybe you, I don't know, I'm older than you, but there's a thing
Not
called the
much.
the Rubik's Cube, and it's very
Mhm.
much how they say to me about the dimensions in space and time. It's a bit better like the Rubik's Cube, how it's formulated. So there's many different sides to it. So, sometimes the human gets so het up about our timeline, the human years, how we do things, but actually you've got to think outside of the box. It's about very much about our energy that we transmit out around us. So, I've had postnatal depression, post-traumatic stress, and depression over the years, and your frequency really drops quite low. So if you're on a lower frequency, you are going to bring in match for match, like you're going to magnetize anything that comes in. So, I have clients that sort of say, well, how do I shift this? Well, we need to do that self-care. We need to do that personal growth on you, so that then you can change your energy field, and then you start attracting in different energy totally. And that's where we get to like the different dimensions in time and space. That's where we can just create anything we want to create in our life. It's literally just to do with magnetizing our own energy and watching what comes in. But humans, they still, the brain, how we've been instructed or told how we should see things, because obviously it fits in with the everyday life that we live in, society, how the 9 to 5 and stuff like that. So because we've been instructed by society, we have to think a certain way. We sort of get stuck in thinking that's how life should be, and that's how we calculate time. You think of the in what's it called, the Industrial Revolution back in Victorian times, and that Greenwich Mean Time around the world. There's time has been inflicted into society, because we need to do things by the time so that we get things done in a day. But that's not how it works with them. It's literally split like this. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I think when some clients who see me on Zoom, they sort of say, I would like to see you in person because of the energy, how it feels. And I said, well, if you think about it, I mean, I've got clients all over the world. I said, as long as I get a good connection with your loved ones, it doesn't matter that we're using Zoom. Actually, it's revolutionized how we work now. It's amazing. And also them, as long as I get a good connection, it's like a radio, and tuning into the right channel, we're good to go. Nobody questions how we pick up information on a radio station. It's the same thing on a radio, and I just pick up on the frequencies. And again, the time with that, it's like, it's no time. It's just amazing. It's hard to put it into words, human words, of how I see it or how I feel it, but I can go there and back in seconds, by doing the work I do as a trance medium, in channeling their information. Galactic Council, I'm not in space, but I can just channel it straight away and give the information that I need to. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I get excited to hear you say that about we can have anything we want, and it has to do with these different dimensions. And I always look at it like a choose your own adventure, that there are possibilities. There are
Yeah.
all these different possibilities, and things can be happening all at the same time.
Yes.
And from what I understand, you can also be a different person at the same time, because that's what reincarnation is. It doesn't necessarily mean well, yeah, it's all happening at the same time. And that's the confusing thing to people, because they're like, well, if I reincarnate, then how is a medium able to bring in my soul to my loved one? Well, because your soul is still unique to the person that you are in the world, but you can also be some, male from India
Yeah.
from 1832 at the
Yeah.
same time, but it doesn't take away from the person you are, which is so confusing. But
I
speak on
know.
that.
I see it as like there's so I would call it echoes of the soul. It's like we have, if we think of us as an individual, we have like they've told me is like we're like a fingerprint. So like we have on our thumbs, we can see the fingerprints and stuff. There's a fingerprint of us out there and our lifestyle, and it's like almost like a ripple or an echo that's played out. So it stays there. So if I get like sometimes I've had this where a great aunt has come through, and you sort of about reincarnation. Well, there's that part of them, like, okay, for instance, thank you, they just said, it's a bit like as we are humans now, depending who we interact with individuals. So, you know, we might be a sister to somebody or a mother to somebody. Like, you know, if I speak to my mum, how I'm going to interact with her, my personality. And if I think of how I might interact with my sister, again, there's another part of my personality, and my brother, my friends, I'm very different to so many different people. So, okay, thank you. They just said, it's a bit like, I explain this normally, it's a bit like if we think of a diamond and there are many facets, how many sides to a diamond is everybody, it's their soul, right? You as a person. So if you think of us, how we function on the planet now in the 3D society to some degree, how we interact with everybody, you know, with our colleagues, our bosses, or person down the street, they're going to interact with part of us. There's going to be part of us. So it might be, say, for instance, you know, during my childhood, one of my stepdads was an alcoholic. So if I talk to a person, suddenly something comes up for me and I can hear it in them, they might say a word or they understand something. I'm like, now they've had somebody in their family who was an alcoholic. So there's always something that's been stimulated in us. Now, okay, thank you. They said, if you think of that, again, it comes back, if you imagine, okay, I haven't thought about it, but a diamond, almost as if it's like a Rubik's Cube, there's many sides to the diamond, like a Rubik's Cube can be juggled about. So depend on who we interact with. So if we think of part of us, we would say going back, going forward as the human, but it's not necessarily, it's parts of the different dimensions of time and space. And so we could be going back, reincarnating. If you think of going back like to 1832 or whatever it is, great aunt or who we were, there's always going to be an echo, a residue of our energy in time and space. So it's a bit like they just said, a bit like a spider web. There's a part of us, an echo, a fingerprint of us. So like if I go into a building, I can touch the wall, or I go in and I can feel there's been a murder. It might be hundreds of years old because there's a residue of it. There's always a residue of something that's happened. A bit like if we walk into a room, there's been an argument, we might pick up a residue of some anger in that room. You know, something we go into a new house, want to buy. There might be something we don't feel right. Our gut instinct's picking up something. So as a soul perspective, they just show me, like on the scrolls, I can think they show me like as a soul program for the individuals, where it's not just flat. This is interesting. It's not paper as such, but it feels very waxy, and there's layers to the scrolls of individuals, and there's layers to this. So they're sort of saying that the residue of the individuals, the echo of the fingerprint of the soul, so it can be played on many levels. Okay, thank you. They just said it's very hard for the human to understand this concept, but this is how they work on the many levels of it. So we are different. So yes, you can be somebody going back hundreds of years ago, but you can still come through. There's a residue of that individual that comes through from that individual that I might speak to. I worked on a case. There was an author, 12 authors for this book out in America. It was all about how there was an injustice, that their white family had created some injustice to somebody of color. And I remember one of them was about a man that was hanged up by rope, and he was being hanged up, a man of color, by the Mississippi. It's actually documented in the newspaper. She didn't tell me anything, I told her. And he was injustice. He shouldn't have been hanged, but he came through because it was linked to this important case. So there was a residue of him, an echo of his soul that needed his story to be told. And she told his story in the book. By her doing that, by saying that her ancestor, he had did wrong against this man of color, it released him, it helped him karmically for him to move on down his family line as well. So I just find it fascinating.
I do too. I know, it's so interesting. And that's the thing too, that brings up another question that a lot of times people will say, oh, this house is haunted. There was a murder here back in this time period. Now, what I have understood is that, like you said, it's not necessarily haunted, but there's an imprint of the negative energy. So
it's
discuss.
A time.
Yes.
It's like a time loop, like a time lapse. It's a repeating of a pattern. So I'm getting information from them as well. So I asked him to join me this evening. So it's a repeating pattern that's like an echo within the actual building. When I've actually gone to buildings, I did quite a lot of this, and I still do. It depends. I worked at Shakespeare Globe Theatre in London, and I did some work. Not that that's the original one, but going back further. When I look at some buildings and I tap into it, I feel the echo. So it's almost like, okay, thank you. they show me. It's a bit like a film, you know, we used to get the old films, like a cine camera, or the films you'd put into a projector. It's like it's just being played over and over and over again, and not sort of a being trapped in it. It might need that, it's different. It might need that to be released, but it's not necessarily that spirit haunting the area. I tell you where I found there was something that happened to me in London, Spitalfields. I was walking with my daughter, I think it's 2-3 years ago now, and all I heard, so when I walk around London or anywhere, if something's happened, like a fingerprint or echo or something that's happened, I might get called to go to sort something out. So I was walking around and I felt something. It was where Jack the Ripper had, you know, murdered all his victims. I wasn't tuned in. I was like, no, I'm here. We're just shopping for girly things, you know, buying earrings and stuff. And all I kept on hearing was, follow me, you need to come here, I need to show you something. I was like, oh, Rebecca, I have to do something, you know, I have to go to this area. And she said, yeah, no problem, Mum. We went to this area. And it was one of the first synagogues that was created in the city of London. And I heard this voice, and she said, they didn't give him any credit for murdering me. And I was like, pardon? She goes, I was one of the first. And she said her name was Catherine and everything. It was just that she wanted to know. It was almost like her story hadn't been told, and she was trying to tell somebody that she was never recognized in life, and she wanted me to hear her story so that she felt that it was completed, that she had been here. It seemed to be important, but that wasn't an echo. It was more her in spirit that needed to tell a story, and there was something to do with my energy that she felt that I would give her some time and space. So I was literally standing there, I was like tuning in, listening to her, and that was something totally different. It wasn't an echo of seeing a crime being committed and being held in the walls. It was more about she wanted me to know this information, because in spirit it was like as if, like when she was in life, because she was a prostitute at the time, people had just ignored her. So that's a bit different. It's a different energy.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And so when you are doing a criminal investigation, I'm sure you probably use all of your senses, but how much of it is actual spirits telling you what happened, and how much of it is you being able to read that imprint?
Right. Okay. I love that. So I've had it when, let's look, there's quite a few I've worked on. I had a client come to see me, and she didn't tell me what it was for. And she sat in front of me, and I could feel a loved one stepping forward. Now, with that loved one who stepped forward, he came in, and I could feel everything. I could taste the blood at the back of his throat. I could feel where he'd been kicked in the eye socket, so my head was aching. So I'm a real physical medium, and the room had changed. She'd said, "Oh my God," she goes, "I can smell my father. He's here." So as a physical medium, and I've had this when I've worked somewhere else, where if a loved one smokes, sometimes the room could be filled with smoke, and I've actually had people witness this as well. So quite a few people say, "Oh, I can smell the smoke. This is his smoke, whatever." And people who didn't even know the individual sort of say, "The room is filling up with smoke," or "I can smell tobacco." So it's a physical medium sort of bringing that through, and it doesn't, not for everyone. So with her loved one came in, and I could feel, taste what happened, and I also felt his anger that this young person had kicked him in the head. He had actually been murdered, and I could feel him drop into the ground. And I worked on that case. There was a phone that I could hear sliding out of his pocket that went underneath the sofa onto a marble floor, and I told her where it was, and she could find it was part of the case. So I have that. Now, for other murders, well, what's happened is sometimes I can, and it's always through, it is actually from those who've passed over, but I need to have a connection. So if I have a family member that steps forward, or somebody that knows them, I have the loved ones or spirit steps in, I can work with them. If it's the police, I might get an item, and I sense into the item. It's more like a fingerprint. It's like a projector sort of screen that they show me, and I might be able to see through the pupils of the person that was murdered an image of who might have murdered them, or get a vision of what they saw. So that's slightly different. But if it's a connection from the heart sense of they are connected to that individual, I get the loved ones coming in. That's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I actually have a question about manifestation, because it is jumping back a bit, but I just remembered I've been questioning this myself. My understanding of manifestation is that you can sort of, like I said, it's a choose your own adventure. So you can sort of choose the dimension in which this reality exists. So today I might be the person who has $0 in my bank account, but there is another reality in which you have $1 million in your bank account, or anything. And so, but I always wonder because when we intentionally do manifestation work, it's a lot of feeling it real, at least from I've been doing it for a long time. Everyone has their own ideas of how it works or the best way to do it. Really just putting yourself in the state of being the person who has those things. Like, even though today the 3D is showing me that I'm struggling, I just continue to go, no, I'm not. I am a money magnet. I feel it. I feel great. And doing this actually really helps raise my vibration a lot so that even if it weren't spiritual, it's still a really healthy practice because I don't get depressed and I just say, well, this doesn't look like it's going my way, but actually behind the scenes, it is going my way. And therefore, I don't get discouraged because I say, it's actually just a matter of time. This is all part of it. The question is, if you are intentionally manifesting, what if something isn't in your quote unquote highest and best good? I know that we all have free will. We can do whatever we want to. Do we also have free will when it comes to manifesting? Do we get to say, like in relationships, oh, that I want that one. And that one could be a terrible person once you get it in there. Can you still manifest that person even if they're terrible for you?
I'm glad you brought this up. So this is really interesting, actually. And so there's so many things to this.
I know.
So when I've run my workshops before, I had like 25, I normally have about 25, 30 people. And in one of the workshops, my guys were there and we were doing the manifestation. And I said, write down on a card so that I post it to you later on, so that you feel into it. You really need to feel into it. And sometimes it's very hard to manifest something that you have no feelings around.
Yeah.
It's hard to create those feelings around it because you don't know what it's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
There were times in my life I've actually had no money at all, and I wouldn't know how it felt to have money because I had no money in the beginning. So how do you feel that? How do you manifest it, right? So I had two clients in that room, and I said, look, start, put your hands up because I know that there's two of you wishing to win the lottery. I said, be brave, step forward. And they didn't. And I said, well, I can call you out if you like, because my guides, there's a massive arrow, finger pointing down to these individuals. And one of them said, well, I'm wishing that I'd win the lottery. And I said, okay, and how does that feel? And she was like, well, I don't know because I've never won the lottery before. I went, okay. It needs that momentum behind it to sort of bring it up. So I said to her, why would you want to win the lottery? She said, I want to be able to buy my mum a house because they were going for a very state where they had no money. I want to buy my mum a house. I want to drive a Mercedes. And she goes, and I think that's about it for now. And I went, okay. Now, what if selfishly you're asking to win the lottery when somebody else is going to win the lottery? They need to win the lottery and not you right now in this lifetime. What if you just put it out that you need or want these items, but without asking to win through the lottery? Because then your angels and the universe can't make that happen for you, because in this lifetime you're not meant to win the lottery. So how are you ever going to get it? So I said to her, have you ever sat in the car that you want? And she said, no. So you don't know how it drives, right? No. So I said to her, why do you want that particular car? She said, well, I want to be able to sit on the motorway. I want to look at everybody and I want them to see me. And I want them to think, wow, she must be doing really well for herself. She's doing this, she's doing that. And I said, well, how would it make you feel? She said, well, confident because of my background I've come from. I know that I've achieved my goal. It will make me feel like this. And as I was talking to her, her state of energy was shifting. It was changing. She was focusing on her having this car. So I said, I want you to practically go to the Mercedes car showroom. Go sit in the Mercedes that you want. I want you to put your hand on the steering wheel. I want you to smell the leather. I've done it myself. I got 3 cars. Literally within weeks of exactly the cars I wanted, I upgraded every single time to the car that I wanted because I was imagining the smell. I'd gone to the showroom, I sat in it, I could feel my physical bottom sitting in there. I could sense the environment of sitting actually in the car. And when I was there, I closed my eyes and I was imagining how it would feel when I was driving it. And I could feel it. And I asked if I could rev the engine up, and they did. So for me, I needed to hear it, see it, smell it, touch it. And that's normally what helps, right? And then I said to her then about her mother buying the home for her and everything. Why do you want to do that? Well, because we don't have a lot of money. My dad had left me. We're in a state of poverty. And I said, well, do you think that's for you to do that for your mum, or do you think that's for your mum to do it? Look at what that is all about. And I said, it might be that you start off small steps, raising your energy, and see what happens next. Within 2 weeks, I told her to try the exercise about feeling, seeing, touching, whatever, and how it would make her feel by having this car. I said, stop thinking about the lottery, because maybe in this lifetime you're not meant to win the lottery. And I said, I don't think you need the lottery. 2 weeks, she contacts me. She said, oh my God, I got promoted. And guess what? What? I've got a company car. What is it? A Mercedes. Wow. So when you limit yourself to thinking how you want it delivered, if it's not delivered on time, it's because it's not meant to be delivered this lifetime as a lottery. Somebody down the road is meant to win the lottery. So don't sort of put all those regulations in of what you want. It's a bit like when you go into a restaurant or a cafe and you order a meal, you look at the start, the name, the dessert. So what you do is, and I teach this on my course, what you do is you're like, what would I like for starters? Now let me think. Maybe I want olives and garlic bread, but it's something that you really feel that you really like. And then what would you like for your mains? And again, you put your mains, and what would you like for your dessert? Do you ever go to the kitchen and say to the chef, this is how I want you to prepare it? This is what I want. Do you ever keep checking back with the waitress, not unless it takes a very long time, and say, how's the chef going to cook it? What olives are you going to use? Where did you buy it from? You don't do that. You just give your order out to the universe like you do in a cafe or restaurant. You wait for it to be delivered. Now, good question about relationships, because I've been doing that recently because I've separated from my partner. So I've been using it for some clients as well. Now, I have been up leveling in the relationship side. So in the relationship side, and finding the right partner is taking me longer because I didn't know where to start from because of my baggage of my background. I always say to my clients, you've got to be the better version of yourself to manifest what you want to come in. It's a magnet. It will come in at the energy where you're at in yourself. So if I think of the first couple of manifestations of individuals, I'm like, oh my God. But the first one was like, oh, wow, blah, blah, blah. And it didn't go according to plan. And I was a little bit, oh my God. Now, they needed to come into my energy stream for me to go, oh no, I deserve something better than that. So by having them coming in, like the question you asked, by bringing them in, and by it not working out exactly right, it made me think, okay, now I know what I want. So I went about through different men, different situations, different things that are happening to me. Now I've up-leveled my energy, the best version of myself at this moment, on the relationship side of myself. Remember, there's many sides to us. So on the relationship side, because I've up-leveled, I've got somebody that's meeting me at the same level right now. Now, it doesn't mean that will always be the same, depending on where I'm at, depending on what they're at. And also, I mean, I did a couple of workshops recently about twin flames and soulmates that we meet. So each person we bring into our energy is upgrading, up-leveling us. So what we might think from the human 3D point of view is, they did this to me, they did that to me. Actually, it's for your growth.
Yes.
So we have to look at everything that comes in. It's for our growth, moving us forward.
Thank you for sharing that. I love that. I talk about this on the podcast all the time, that I am I feel so recovered, but sex and love addict, which is unavailable men were my thing. So I had this ongoing toxic relationship he was an addict, I was an addict, and it went on for 10 years, on and off. Just an addictive relationship without commitment, and not that I wanted it to be. Years later, now that we're both healthy and we're still friends, and it's interesting, I have said to him, because we've made amends to each other, and I'm sorry I used you as a drug and all of that stuff, but I've said the thing about it is, even though it was the most painful relationship of my life, if it hadn't been for that relationship, I wouldn't have ended up in the 12-step program that led me to healing, but also to spirituality, because I was pretty much agnostic, bordering on atheistic. The whole healing process would not have happened had my reaction to that person not sent me spiraling into a rock bottom, had not, blew up my marriage, blew up just everything in my life because of addiction. But it was some of the worst things that have ever happened to me are the best things for me. And so I think that that is something. And even I've had relationships where it's like, okay, I know this person isn't able to show up for me, but I feel now that I'm healthy and I love myself, even within those relationships, I'm now able to say, hey, I'm now able to speak up and say, hey, this doesn't work for me. And this is what I'm going to need. And are you willing to step up? And I'm like, just that alone is
Amazing.
like, I'm like, that's setting me up to be able to have when that next level relationship comes along, where I call it next level love, because I am no way, after leaving an 8-year relationship, I'm still doing me this year. And I'm interested in focusing here. I don't want all that yet. I'm still having fun. Not having fun, but just doing
No,
me.
doing the work. I love it. I want to
Yeah.
high five. I'm so excited because the thing
Yeah.
is, because look, I am a spiritual person, right? But we live on a planet where we need to be 3D as well, whatever.
Yeah.
And the psychology part of this as well is so important. Some people just say, well, I'm going to manifest this and think it's going to happen like magic. Look, yes, it's there if we want it, but we need to also up level on ourselves. We need to do our work on ourselves.
Yep.
For us, up level. I mean, I'm coming out of a COVID narcissistic relationship, and it's like, it taught me so much. And it's also taught me my value in myself.
Yes.
And that is like the next program that, I'm building a new platform, and I'm going to be working with some other therapists where we're bringing people together, where we're going to put a course together where you can see, identify from a toxic relationship, and then how we can help to move us out of the toxic relationship. What is it that we thought that we needed, or whatever? Every person that's brought to us, we have to see it as a lesson. What is it teaching our soul? This is about soul growth. And that's why, I work so much with Archangel Metrodon, because it's about soul growth and humanity. So it's important that we know that, if we're having that pause moment in our life, that we're taking some rest, we're getting to know ourselves, that's when we produce the best version of ourselves. And that's when we use the psychology, and that's when we use, I use all the techniques I do in helping to clear some blockages, so that we raise our energy frequency. And so then we can get exactly what we want. And yes, we do bring those individuals in because it's shifting, it's helping us to identify. I mean, some people can end up thinking, oh, this has happened to me and this is my life. And how about see it as a lesson? What's it shown you? What's it shown you that you rightfully deserve? So high five you. I love that.
Thank you. High five to you back, girl. Because I think that, as I've said, like coming out of this 8-year relationship, that we were just total opposites by the end. And however, there's not 1 ounce of regret in what I learned. And I'm sure he would say the same. And it brought us to here. Now this is my eat, pray, love year, where it's all about me and spirit and growth and career and all of that stuff. But I am only now willing to couple up with someone we are next level love. It is not just, oh, yeah, that person keeps me. I don't need a relationship enough for it to just be average. So my thing is, even these little interactions along the road where you're like, is this person perhaps someone that I could have that with? When it isn't, I don't get disappointed, because I feel like this has set me up to be ready for that next thing. It's helped me with communication skills, just interaction and asking for what I need, and showing compassion and love and all of it. It's like, it's so freeing. And I don't think I think it's a beautiful thing sometimes to be with the quote unquote wrong person.
Yeah, do you know what? And also, I was saying this to some of my clients, because this is some of the stuff I was channeling recently, and I'm going to build some workshops on this. The individuals are mirroring back to us actually what may need still healing, or just to show us a reflection. Like I was saying about the diamond and the Rubik's cube that changed. There's many sides to us. The individuals we bring into our life is very much about, there's some reflection, there's some work, and there might be that, harmonious at times, it might not be. It's just about us learning, and they are brought in because we are on an energy frequency that we're sending out like a radio wave, and they have been drawn in. And some people think, oh my God, I've had a traumatic, sort of terrible relationship. What is it just showing you? What is it showing up to you that there's something in there that what you don't like in that individual? There might be something of reflection that maybe you need to do some work on, or you're moving out of that. That's why it no longer fits right. There's so many individuals that I know having clients that stay in long-term marriages because it's a marriage and they think they have to stay in it. But you're always changing. If that individual is not changing and up leveling, then you're holding yourself back. It's like, being kind to individuals and say, hey, this isn't working for me anymore. let's move on. It's better for everyone, but they are being brought in. I think they just said they're on your scrolls. They're actually in your information. So by you stopping yourself from doing it, it's like your soul's not learning the lessons it needed to learn in this lifetime, and you're going to repeat it again.
Exactly. I think so many people say, oh, I want to find my soulmate. And I actually have a question about twin flames and soulmates. And I always feel like there are lots of soulmates. I mean, my mother, my sister, my friend, my
Yes.
partners, my lovers, whoever. And I actually said this to someone recently who I have a relationship with, that we haven't it's not we haven't been able to work it out. But I said, honestly, uh I truly believe we are part of each other's soul family. And it doesn't mean we're meant to be together. What it
Yes.
means is that we are, and maybe not, but what it means is that we are mirrors held up for each other. And I can see exactly what that thing is, because it's my stuff and his stuff, and the way that we both need to, even though I feel so healed and so recovered, there's this little part of me, that I'm like, this is still kind of there. So I think that we've complemented each other beautifully in that way. And so I'm like, I don't know what this is, but it is revealed so much. And I think that it's really healing us both. I don't want to take credit for his healing or vice versa, but I just think there's so much healing within the dynamic that it's so worth pursuing, especially if you're in a healthy place of love and it's not dragging you down. I don't recommend an addictive, painful relationship. I could, back to my addiction days, I didn't want to live because they were so painful. So I don't want to recommend that to anybody. However, if you do go through that, hang in there and just know that it will lead you to, if you stay on the right path and you keep working on yourself, it does have the potential to be one of the best and most formative things that's ever happened to you as a soul and as a human being.
I totally agree. I mean, there's this thing that I try to teach to my clients about being your authentic self, and being authentic self is like doing what's best for you. But for so many reasons, we're talking about soul pods and stuff, like our family members, our friends, everything that comes in, you might be planted in a soul pod family that's quite toxic, and then you sort of lose part of yourself and you think what you should be, that there's psychology around it as well. And so you can lose yourself. Now, when I work with clients, it's about looking at who it is, who are you, what is it that you want to, get from this lifetime, where are you at? And when I say who are you, a lot of clients can't answer that because they don't know. And that's fine. We work through that process of finding yourself and what's going on for you. Yes, I totally agree. There are so many soulmates, and there's different types. You can have a karmic soulmate, which is a repeating through past lives that keep coming in, that trying to show you a lesson, teach you a lesson. So I know that this person that I'm moving out of a relationship with, I know from the past life workshop that I did with Dr. Brian Wise, and then also on myself, because I'm now a practitioner, that he's been in several lifetimes of mine, and the way we disconnected in each of the lifetime, I ran away and fled. This lifetime I'm not. I'm making sure I'm decoupling properly, that a soul contract has actually disengaged. I mean, we're not married. We haven't been married, been together for 32 years, but it was a legal agreement. And directly that legal agreement was signed, something happened magically. There was something energetically. And I said to a friend, because every word has a frequency, the intentions, you think about spells going back to witchcraft back in the day, intentions that we set for manifestation, every word carries a frequency. And the words that were written carried a frequency, and it's connected to the soul contracts I had before in previous lifetimes. So we're not coming back again karmically. There's no way. I know, I've checked my akashic records and stuff. So you get karmic soulmates that have been sent to you when in your soul pod, it was like, I haven't quite learned that lesson yet. Let's bring that person forward. Let's bring that so that keeps happening. You'll get your friends being there as soulmates and friends. Some are just companionships, not just, but they're companionships, as in that love companionship or friendship, or soul sisters. I've got quite a few soul sisters that I'm aware of that are my soulmates that have come forward, that we help each other on our journey. You can get them coming in. So there are several in your soul pod. And in your soul pod, you can come back in one lifetime as a female. You might come back as, a mother to your mother, or sister to your brother. You can be, gender makes no difference at all. Twin flames, very different. So different. It's almost, when I say twin flames, it's like the egg that we have, identical twins from the same egg that splinters off and creates two. So twin flames are important, that something happened within the soul that they needed to come forward in a lifetime. So I feel that I've met my twin flame recently, and with twin flames it can be magical as long as you're both done your same personal growth. Whatever's happened to you, this individual, I know that he's gone through similar stuff to me, and it's like unbelievable, and our personalities are same. This is the thing with the twin flame. It's like they are going to say something and it's like what you would normally say. It's like, but you've never met them before. It's like, wow, how did that happen? So they will say similar things to what you might say. They might have the same similar thought process to you. They've gone through similar life traumas like you have. And then when you come together, it's almost as if you feel complete. There's harmonious energy between you if you have both done the personal growth. So if that individual has worked on themselves and you worked on yourself and you come back together, it's good, it works. But if they haven't, and they are similar to you and they are your twin flame and they haven't, it's very destructive. Very destructive. But they all come in and out again at another point. It's like the flame moving in and out. So the energy is pulled together, and there's a reason that at the time and space, they said there's a point, like a little pin, you pin it in, that's when they're supposed to come in, to help also for your growth and to help their growth as well. So twin flames are very different.
That's what I understand. I think that I'm my knowing is that I have met my twin flame as well. And he has acknowledged the same thing. He's not available. But it's so interesting because also twin flames don't have to be the same age, because the soul
Yes.
can come in, it can split and come in at a different time. So um, it's just that, and at least in our case, it was just, I've known you my whole life. This is real. Something's, what is this? And it's like, and I would see this person for like 15 years all around town. And I lived in LA. It's like, there he is, there he is, there he is, there he is. We'd run into each other everywhere. And it was like, what is this? Why is this happening? And finally we were like, there's something going on here. And it doesn't necessarily mean, and what I've said is, it doesn't necessarily mean we're meant to be together in this life, but there again is the mirror of what I think it's the mirror of. There's so many things, including, okay, you're not in a position where you're available. So maybe the lesson is that we're supposed to just feel it and be okay with it and leave it and not act on it. And maybe that's a lesson in itself, is it doesn't
Yes.
have to be acted on. It just has to be acknowledged, maybe. And
You
that's
took
it.
the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was
Oh,
going to
yeah.
say. Maybe it's not the time. Maybe it's not meant to be in this lifetime. Your soul, your twin flame will come in and out all the time. Your mirror, your match up. This again is very much about, if we are our true, and this is why we're clients, you are your true authentic self, by looking at what you want to do for you and working with your energy, knowing when you feel sort of at that frequency where you feel very happy. That might be listening to music, simple things like that. And knowing when you are recognizing when you feel a bit down and taking that self-care time. When you become your authentic self and knowing exactly what you want, you're then vibrating at a different frequency. You then attract in energy magnets that are there to help you at any point on your journey. So it's our duty to our soul to, not that I'm saying that you have to always be high frequency and pretending life's roses and everything. That's not how it works, because we get mostly our soul lessons from when times are really hard, but we reflect back on it and we're like, what's this showing me? And this is what I do with my clients, and I do it for myself. The relationships not been a thing that I've ever been extremely good at because of my past, my background. Everything else is fine. And I look at it and I go, what is this showing me? And I sit there and I go, guys, what is it? My guide, guys, what is this showing me? Tell me. I need to get out of my head for a while. And when it's stressful and it's hard, I make sure then I meditate and I do a few things for me during the day. So it's like acknowledging when things are tough and you might not be receiving the information you think you are, or you're not understanding what's going on. That's the time you do a bit of a pause, the meditation, the self-care, the self-love. Once you've done that, it sort of resets everything. It's sort of, you go into neutral and then things become clearer. Always the brain, psychologically and chemistry-wise, as we are a chemistry set, creates a fog and you don't understand what's going on. So we need to stop that, come away for a while, chill out, and then the information comes in.
I love it. I thank you so much for all of that. I could talk to you for 20 more hours, and I know that we will keep in touch and probably talk more and more. But I know just for the sake of your time and your energy and everyone listening, I just want to wrap up this interview, although I know that you and I will have so many more in-depth conversations. This is how I found my coven and my soul sisters, is through doing this work. Uh, and I'm sure some of share the same. I have the sisterhood that I found through here, and it's just been a wonderful thing to be able to talk about this crazy stuff that to us is so normal and sounds insane, but I'm like, I know I can tell you this. And Brooke Grove is one of those people to me. She'll be like, I know I can tell you this, but I just communed with the goddess of, whatever. And I'm like, "Ah, that's amazing. And we get each other. But I just want to say, I just want to ask you as sort of a wrap up question. Talk about anything you're offering, and we will put links below as well. So you can send those to me. I'll put them down, of your classes, your workshops, your services. But also, what is it, other than everything you've just said, that you want people to know? What's the most important thing you want people to know?
It's interesting you say. I mean, they just interjected sort of said at some point we're going to talk about deja vu and different dimensions. That's what they said, because there was something about
Oh,
we talked
yes.
about dimensions, and they said that's why we get those feelings of deja vu, because there's
Please
part of
say
us,
that.
we walked in that place, we've been in there, either the past, the present, and in our future as well. So the deja vu moments where we get the hair from the back of the hand, they just said there's those moments of we don't realize dimensional wise we might have visited there when we've been dreaming or something, or part of our pathway, been on a job, or we walked along that path, that same street, whatever. So they wanted to interject with that. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you. No, thank you. I mean, we've got time. It's just, it's
Okay.
just I just don't want to keep you all day, but thank you
No,
for
no,
sharing
no.
that spirit. Thank you, guides, and
You have an
and you, Anne.
option, basically. I mean, they
Yeah.
would tell you. So if I ignore them, they get a little bit stroppy. So
Yeah.
okay, for me, my real strong message is that I know why I'm here, in the sense of, I know it might sound a bit pretentious, to help humanity to connect to your soul, to understand that we don't need anyone to be telling us what to do or to instruct us, or it's more about teaching techniques to help people to tune into their own energy, their own vibe, so they have direct connection, so that they can help them on their journey. That's my mission, that's my purpose, that's why I'm here. I've learned it more now. It's like to teach this, to show others that to get out of the human way, stop like logically thinking, because we've been taught this from the day we would go to school. It's all about our brain, it's not about tuning into our heart, not in our societies. My job is to teach people to tune into their hearts, so that this is your first brain. This is your brain. There's two brains in our body. Your heart was the very first thing that happened in your body, that was created way before your brain started creating. So if we tune into our heart more and our gut feeling, then we'll understand, like animals, they don't over logically think things. They'll go with their gut instinct to do things. If we could go more to do with that and out of our psychological head, because remember, up until the age of 7, your brain doesn't come on board. It's like you're listening to all, I mean, I know this from the psychological work I've been doing and all the work that I do with clients. Your brain up until the age of 7 is your caregivers that are giving you information. You absorb it like a sponge. So if you think it's there until the day that you die, of old filing systems, old information in your filing cabinet. So if you're scared of something, it might actually be that you never went through that experience, but a great aunt or your mum or dad did, and you pulled it up as reference to protect yourself. Now, if you're thinking that you can hold on to the information into an 84-year-old that I had as a client, it was her mum's fear of spiders, not hers. If you're thinking that, then everything that you go through life, you're logically being told what to do, being brainwashed. But if you go to your heart, I want people to know, if you can start tuning into your heart and learn more about being intuitive and the psychic stuff, you are the captain of your own ship. You can navigate yourself through your own life, instead of a great aunt or your parents sort of saying you need to stay married to that person because you got children. Whereas if you go to your heart, your navigation system will point you in the right direction. It's your compass, your internal compass.
Thank you. I love the way you said that. I just started studying mediumship during COVID, when my life was derailed, my career was derailed due to a vocal disorder. And I was like, what now is going to happen? And then that's when I started doing this work. And you just said it so well. I've never been more at peace. I've never been happier. I've never been more in the flow. For example, went from being a emotionally dependent sex and love addict where if there was a separation between me and someone else, I would become suicidal. I couldn't go on. I could barely breathe or function or enjoy life. And now I'm at a place where because I'm so in the flow, and that's also 10 plus years of recovery. So that there's that too. But everything, whether it's a job disappointment, a relationship disappointment, whatever it is, I'm so much more able now to just say, I can't wait to see what this is all about. I'm kind of excited to see where this is going. What am I being shown here? And I feel I just got chills. I am not saying I don't ever get stressed out or I don't ever feel bad. Obviously, we're human. But there's so much more of a, like you said, now I understand that when I hear something, know that it's true. Especially doing mediumship work, I've learned the more I do that, the better my readings get of trusting. Okay, this is going to sound weird, but does a lace up boot mean something to you? Whatever it is. And then the person says, yes, you're like, I just have to trust everything. When I hear that voice, that's like, you know what? Why don't you hold off on that? Maybe don't take this job. Maybe those kinds of things are inner guidance. They're not always. I mean, sometimes it's just a thought, but yeah, speak to that, please.
Because the thing is, I think we have to remember, and this is the thing that that they told me, and I'm aware of it so much now. We are a soul having a human experience. Now, the reason for us having this human experience is because, remember, I was saying that angels haven't had a human experience, so they can't feel into the feelings. Our soul has come encapsulated within this human vessel so that we have those moments where we feel down, that we're having all those senses, so that we can actually then acknowledge that that emotion is actually being processed by our soul saying, oh, you're feeling sad or you're feeling depressed. What's that about? And it's working, you're working together with your soul, but you need the human vessel to actually feel it, the vehicle of the human being. So I have those moments where I feel a bit down sometimes. I'm normal. We have to have those moments where we bob back up and we're like, oh, that was the level I was at. This is what's happened. That's how I process. That's how I go on to pause, because the human being in me, and I look back at my records in my finding system, like, I think I recognize why I'm feeling like this, because of this is an old program that has been instilled in me from my childhood. So that's why I know, that's why I did the psychology and the therapy work and everything else, so I can look at it from that perspective too. But we are having this human experience, so it's okay to have those moments. Perfectly fine. It's normal. And to know that everything that happens is for our greatest purpose, and that the universe knows what's there for us. We might not understand at the time why we didn't get that particular job, but when we look back later, we'll go, that makes sense. Now I know. And we have to keep saying that every time something doesn't work how we want it to work, it's to say, okay, I'll pin that for now. And then I'll look back and I go, now I know why that didn't happen. It's okay. We don't get so
Exactly.
upset. It makes life, we can flow in the energy of the universe, and it makes it easier to say, I don't have to know the reason right now. The universe is guiding me. I know, I'll see later why it happened.
Agreed. And I found, as I'm reaching official middle age, I see that all the time where now I can look back. I have enough history to go, I see exactly why that happened. I know exactly, and everything has fallen into place. I keep telling my friends that too, who are going through things. Just, I'm not saying don't please feel the grief, but also know that just trust the process. It seems so it just seems so overwhelming and unfathomable and painful now, and it is, and that's okay. It's part of it. But hold out because there's something coming. There's
Definitely.
always something coming that is going to be it doesn't it's something exciting that is going to be a new chapter that you will embrace
Yeah.
eventually. So, yeah.
And I think if you see it as, like I always say this, if you see it as a book, your life is this adventure, this book. If you look at, there's one chapter, there will always be another chapter. One chapter closes, you go forward. And that's how we read books. We go forward. We don't need to keep going back to read the same chapter over and over again. So stop repeating the same chapter. If you want to look at it, to look at the references of it, fine. But it's about moving forward.
Hooray. So yeah, you can, if you would just end by plugging any, I say plugging, that sounds so commercially, but just talking about anything that you would like to share that's coming up for you, workshops or anything you're excited about.
So on my website, I normally put my workshops out, and I'm running a retreat in September, and I have about 4 Americans that are flying in already, and we've got 2 spaces left, but that's always on my information's on my website. I'm building a brand new platform where we're looking at how we can help individuals and soul connections around the whole planet. That's, watch this space, it's to come. There will be lots of workshops and online courses that you can do, but it's all about this soul leveling up. It's all about what we've been speaking about today from the psychological perspective, and also from the spiritual side. So we are like a diamond. There's many sides to us. So it's not just the spiritual path. We need to look at the other sides too. So that's what I'm building right now. So it's, watch this space. It's coming very soon, which I'll let you know directly. It
Very
does.
exciting. Well, thank you so much for being here, Anne. It has been such an enormous pleasure to have you. And I look forward to knowing more about you and getting to know you better. And I will have your information below. I just want to thank you for bringing your love, your generosity of in sharing your energy and your insights with everybody, and just your general overall positive, beautiful demeanor and beautiful glow, because it really just, I know it uplifted me, and I know that there are going to be so many comments on how much people love you because you are very lovable. So thank you again for being here. It means the world.
Thank you. It's been my absolute pleasure. And it's been lovely speaking and connecting to you. And it's lovely to meet a fellow soul sister.
Yes.